Hello, everybody. Welcome to another conversation series with Jason and John. Today, we are very happy to welcome Courtney Gaines to the show. Courtney, how are you today?
The third geek. I'm good.
So, I want to ask you right off the bat is where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Believe it or not, I grew up in Los Angeles. And people are normally surprised by that because, this face looks like it's from the Midwest or the South. I certainly get that. But also, my acting mentor, a guy named Virgil Fry, was from the Midwest. And I started studying with him when I was 13. I think lazy California and Midwest aren't that really far from each other. And if you have something like an influence like that, I think that people say I don't really sound like I'm from Los Angeles, which I can get.
I could see you down the road from me right now here in Columbus, Ohio.
There you go. And having been to Ohio and worked there, I agree. And then I did a Civil War movie a few years back called "A Field of Lost Shoes" in Virginia, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm the only actor who looked like I was somebody's cousin from there. I was like, I really look like people from there.
One of the things I would think of when you say that you were from Los Angeles, Justin.
Four geeks. It's a whole new show.
I know, whole new show.
Well, Courtney, what I was asking about was I think that when people say that you were born and raised in LA, I think that a lot of people, including probably the three of us as well, we just assume that people move to Los Angeles, because they're chasing the dream, fame and fortune and movies and whatnot. So it's not, oftentimes that we hear that somebody's born and raised in LA.
That's absolutely true. And most of my good friends I grew up with left. So that tells you something too. If you have a regular straight job, you better to get out of there. I mean, the rents and trying to buy a house there are insane. You can do better in Vegas or Oregon or, so yeah, a lot of my good friends I grew up with are don't live there. They all live by Arizona, but they don't live there.
Mm-hmm.
I often say, and I wonder if I hadn't been born there, if I certainly knew this is what I wanted to do at a very young age, but would I have made that leap to go to Los Angeles? And I really can't answer that question. My father was a laborer at Warner Brothers Studios, just a guy who worked there, So I remember as a kid, sometimes he'd work on the weekends and make time and a half, and I could roam around the lot and, where the Creature of the Black Lagoon was, and he worked on Fantasy Island, and I remember running on those sets and looking at all the greenery and how fake it looked, going, how does this look so good on TV? This looks like so fake, So I don't know, I don't know if I'd have had the guts to get out there and make it happen. I really can't say.
All right, so we're going to start with Children of the Corn because you hit it out of the park. That was the first movie listed on your IMDb, and it is a massive hit and a great film. I watched it recently. I got really into the Children of the Corn series and went pretty far into it. What was that experience like getting the part, and what made you audition for it?
Well, before I say that, because I don't want to forget, since you're getting into Children of the Corn, there's a prequel coming out very soon. I think it's going to come out this September or October. We've been waiting to hear a date. The only reason I wouldn't give much credence to one, but this one has some really big producers in it, and it was also shot in Australia during the pandemic. So I think this one shows serious potential. So keep an eye out for that. But back to my Children of the Corn. I was just trying to get a break, right? I was trying to break into the business, and I was in an acting class. This guy Virgil Fry for 5 years, and there was young actors breaking out, but everybody kept telling me, because everybody knew I was good, that when I turned 18, I was going to blow up, and it was because back then the emancipation laws were you had to be 18 to work an 8-hour day. So it was all about, as teen cinema was blowing up in the 80s, about finding actors who were 18 who looked 15, which I certainly fit that bill. And the casting director, Linda Francis, had become a fan. I think she saw me in a showcase, and she cast me in something else that ended up not going. But she was kind of making it her mission to get me work. And so, she brought me in on that thing, and I think she was cheerleading for me all the way and helped push me through that door. So
yeah, that's awesome.
A lot to her.
Yeah, because Malachi is not a small role in the movie either.
No.
It's you and Isaac through most of the film.
Right. If John Franklin and myself are not good bad guys, there's no resistance. There's no movie. Not bad for two guys for our first gigs. Not too bad. Shabby.
Do you enjoy working in the horror genre?
I'm not a lover of horror. I'll say that. And the reason I'm mainly not a lover of horror is I just don't like violence. I grew up in neighborhoods where I saw violence, and it's not something I enjoy. And especially the movies that like torture, torture stuff. That stuff gets me riled up. It really does. Like I feel like the people who like it, I want to go. Well, let me drill into your knee and see how funny it is. Let's see how you like that. but hey, everybody has their own taste, and that's one thing I learned from doing the conventions. I'm glad I started doing the conventions because for years I resisted it. Is I've learned that horror fans, horror is more tongue in cheek for them. There's a comedy element to it. They need something to jolt them. A lot of them are, not all of them, but a lot of them, like their emotional is real low. They need something really big to stimulate them, or they just find it entertaining. Like my manager is a horror lover, and I've gone to movies with him, and when there's like something bad happening in Hatchet 2, he starts giggling like a schoolgirl. like what? I've never heard this laugh, but it's like he finds horror titillating, right? So, but for me, honestly, I don't care about the genre. I like the fact that I've been in many genres. What I'm looking for is a good character with a good arc, and I'm looking for a good story I can believe. And that's what I think, one of the elements of Children of the Corn is I think you can buy the idea if it's a really small town in the middle of nowhere and a whole town of kids, decided to get rid of the adults, they could probably pull that off, especially if, like my character, get rid of the blue man, get rid of the cop, and now what do they got? They have no defense whatsoever, right? So I think that premise was, you could imagine that might happen. And I think that's the key to a good story. Agreed.
I'd like to talk real quick, Courtney, about Memphis Bell. Because while doing some research for you or on you, I read where you had to go through some like military training for that movie.
A boot camp, yeah. And that movie, everything about that movie was top notch. All the actors, it was the movie to get that year for an actor my age. And all of us, whenever you see somebody down the road, we've all talked about chasing a better experience than that. Like it really set the bar high. 4 or 5 of the crew were Oscar winning. Our DP, our set designer, our editor, our producer. It was just top notch. And part of it was the first thing they did was they had us go do a boot camp of sorts. And we were trained by these SAS agents, guys that were like dudes who were in the Falkland War, but also, I don't know if you remember back in the day in England when it was Iran or Iraq took over an embassy, and it only lasted like 3 days because these guys parachuted in. Yes. 3 of those 8 dudes were the dudes who trained us.
Whoa.
Right, so these guys were like no joke, but they put us through this crazy boot camp. We were out at this old I don't say a mansion, but something like that, but like decrepit with a moat and a lake and a whole night. And they just put us through the paces, man. We would get up, they'd wake us up at 3 in the morning. The longest day of my life was one of the days we did was from 3 a.m. to 3 a.m. And I remember thinking to myself 3 times, was this the same day? It was absolutely the longest day of my life. And they just kept giving us tasks to do, like impossible tasks, where we'd have to, do a teamwork thing and with time to get it done. And we wouldn't get it done like in the mud or whatever. And it was intense. And they broke us just like you break somebody in the military, And some of the people, Modine would talk about the moment that it got real was we had done something screwed up and we were having to we had backpacks on and stuff. We were having to lie down and keep our feet up off the ground. But this backpack was just metal in the bottom and was digging into the back of my back. And I said to the guy, I said, hey, can I take this backpack off? And he was like, no. And I said, it's digging on my back. He said, no. And I said, either I take this backpack off or me and you get up and I go right now. And this guy would have mopped my ass up. You understand? This guy would have it would have been like it would have been a bloodbath. I would have gotten my ass kicked. But at that moment, I was so tired and I was so angry, I didn't care. And he got that, and so he let me take the backpack off. But for Modine, he said that was like the first time somebody got authentic. where everybody had their kind of their act on to that moment. And it was kind of like the first step of people getting real, because everybody, that's the thing about something like that, is it brings out everybody's BS. You know what I mean? Everybody's way to survive or get over or whatever their winning formula is. Like Sean Astin, he's like Rudy. He's like that, like Mr. No Quit. Like you get sick of the guy because he'd be like, let's do, what else do we got to do? Let's do it. You'd be like, shut up, man. Like my legs are killing me, It was a break, but that's his real personality. Like it came through. So everybody, you got to see everybody's BS. And I'll tell you, at the end, a few girls showed up after we'd been there for like 6 days, and they were like not real lookers, I'll be honest, but it was like they were like the best thing we'd seen in like a year. You know what I mean? It was like guys, like, where they're on a boat and they get leave, like why it's like women on their mind. It's like after you go through hell and nothing but dudes, like a female influence is like, oh my God, women.
So you were part of one of the best time travel movies of all time, Back to the Future. What was that like?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think of it as so many things, but you're right. Ultimately, it's a time travel movie, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Time travel trilogy, actually.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, I always just tell a story because it was the blessing for me is I was in the movie before Eric Stoltz got let go, and for those who don't know the story. Though I think Eric Stoltz is a fine actor, we did Memphis Bell together, and he beat me out on jobs like Mask that I really wanted back in the day. Fine actor. They didn't think he was funny enough. He was being kind of method, making everybody call him Marty, and they just decided he wasn't doing it. So they dropped him, which was a huge blow to him. But they brought they brought in Michael J. Fox, and they had to reshoot like the first third of the movie. That took like 5 weeks. So I was getting paid for like those whole 5 weeks for a job that was maybe 3 days. Because I'd already worked, and then they dropped me, and then so they had to keep me on payroll, and so that's to be in a trilogy that's maybe still the top grossing or one of the top grossing trilogies of all time. It's been a blessing when those residual checks come. They've saved my ass many a time in my career, and it's on TV all the time still.
Yeah.
Plays that in Sweet Home Alabama are the two that I have that's just constantly play on television stuff. Seems like they're always on,
Yeah.
What's it like on set when an actor gets replaced? Like, is there a lot of bad tension, or is it weird?
Well, I was kind of in the beginning and the end, right? So it's like he didn't get fired like the day I was there, so I didn't know what had happened at first. I heard it through the grapevine, and then when they found out I was getting paid that long, they flipped out, or they couldn't do anything. So by the time I got there, it'd been like 5 weeks of everybody kind of calming down. So I didn't, and I didn't really, feel the. I'm sure it was a big shock in the beginning. Crispin Glover and I had done a first thing I ever did was an AFI project, American Film Institute project. That I always tell this story because it's just one of the craziest to this, my career still to this day. So I come in, first thing I remember doing, director's like, okay, so you two guys are smoking in the boys' room. And I'm doing the scene with this guy, and then all of a sudden this bathroom door opens, and it's Crispin Glover dressed in the black outfit of Olivia Newton-John in Grease. Right? And he's going like, hey guys, what's going on? And I'm watching this guy going, okay, this outfit's really this is bizarre. I wasn't ready for that, but this actor's amazing. Who the hell is this? So like we got to be friends at that point, a little bit, and so it was nice to have somebody on that set that I knew. But Crispin would always ask for another take, and it would drive Robert Zemeckis crazy. And Robert Zemeckis filmed this, that's the dance scene he filmed for 3 days. He tried it from every possible angle, but anything Crispin did, he always wanted to do another because he'd be like, "It's fine, Crispin. No, I can do it. It's fine, Crispin. No, but what if I tried this?" He'd be like, "Crispin, it's fine. We're moving on." Because Crispin's just so creative, the brain doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd like to ask a couple questions about Cant Buy Me Love.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got the script and you read kind of what the plot was about, a kid that's paying a girl to be his girlfriend and that, what did you think of the script when you first read that?
As far as the premise goes, I liked it a lot. I actually auditioned for the lead. I had done another movie for that same company called Apollo Films, called Winner Take All, a little motorcycle movie, like dirt bike movie. And so I got to read for the lead, and then they brought me back in to read for the best friend, and I got that. and I was happy to get it. That was a great role. But the premise itself, I liked. I'll say the script and was maybe a B minus. There was some tasteless jokes and things like that. Then what happened is after we shot the film, a division of Disney started up called Touchstone, and it was like it was the first picture they picked up. And what they did is they had us go back and shoot for a week and redo all the tasteless stuff, which was good. And then they also laid down some big bucks for the Cant Buy Me Love soundtrack. It was like $250,000 for that title track in the 80s, right? That was a lot of money, but that made a huge difference, in the terms of the perception of the quality of the movie. And it went on to, I think it was the number 3 grossing movie that summer. I mean, pretty crazy. And it certainly broke Patrick Dempsey and Amanda Peterson. I guess I thought it would break me too, but I guess what I kind of learned over time was if you're not the leads in an independent film, I mean, I'm not saying it didn't open doors and I got more auditions, but it didn't like just absolutely break me like it did them,
Yeah, my other question was, how was it working with Patrick Dempsey?
So Patrick and I we worked together again on Sweet Home Alabama and kind of got to square this all away. And he totally acknowledged this. He was very serious about what he was doing. And his acting coach, Rocky, who he ended up marrying later, which was a whole weird, she was much older than him. They were very serious about like this method stuff they were doing. And he would listen to music and have all these visual things he was working with. And so he was really kind of in his own game about how he was going about stuff, kind of isolated, where that was kind of, for me, I didn't like that because we were supposed to be best friends. So to me, like he had his own house and like he wasn't associating with people much, where all the other kids were out in a hotel and we hung out together. So that part was a little strange. And I had already done a few films and I was feeling pretty good about the work I was doing. And I was able to if I can, I'll do this. If I got a hold of my character, then I can be more social and hang out and talk before shooting, then lock in. But if I need to lock in, I will. I'll go away and do what I got to do. I'm not there to make friends ultimately, but I identified with that character. I understood it and I had a grip on it. So I was having a good time and people were liking me. Whereas Patrick, people were kind of like, "What's this trip?" But when he crossed the line with me was. I forget what scene it was, but I was a scene where I was supposed to be annoyed or whatever. And he decided like he was going to personally annoy me to get me going. Mm-hmm. And that didn't fly well with me. It's like, let me do my take once or twice and see if I'm doing fine before you decide you have to intervene on my work. Mm-hmm. So when I got the chance to jack his ass up in that arcade, you bet your ass. Though he's great in that scene. And I'll tell a little story about that scene because that's the story I'm telling. So that scene, and this is where I would mean like a B- script or whatever, there was a whole monologue where after I put him against the arcade, or it was like, I was your friend, I did it for free, what they call extemporaneous comp, which I always hate. And by that time, the director had a lot of trust in me, and we went to a room to do a rehearsal, so to speak, which we didn't always do, but this was a big scene. And he said, "Well, what do you think of this?" And I said, "I wouldn't say any of this stuff." He said, "What would you say?" I'd say one line. "You shit on my house." He's like, "Great, let's do that." And I was like, "Great, let's roll. We jack this dude up. I can't wait." And it ended. And another thing interesting happened though is when Disney picked that movie up, that scene was too heavy for them, for a comedy. And the suits were like, "We want to take that scene out. It peaks the movie and it's too intense." And Jerry Henshaw, the guy from Apollo Films, who had been around for like 30 years, big 350-pound guy, he stood up and he pounded on the table and he said, "You're not taking that fucking scene out of my movie. Do you understand?" And the suits were like, "Okay." And, good on him that he stood up for me, stood up for that moment, because obviously, that line is, in pop culture now forever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
the Burbs, you get to work with a lot of big names, like
yes,
Tom Hanks being the top one of them. How crazy was that? How fun was that?
So the first thing that was interesting about that was that I didn't realize how impactful it was because I was too young and I was just working all the time. Is there was a writer strike that happened right before that movie, so the industry. That movie just got in like right in right before the whole thing shut down. So literally on the whole Universal lot, it was us and Fletch too for like months. It was like a ghost. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't realize. I just like, oh, I'm working. I'm all right. I'm working, But Tom Hanks was. I mean, I say the same thing all the time, which is that there's not a more down to earth A-list actor you're ever going to meet. I mean, he just really, he's just not buying the hype, right? He's doing the work, and he, he's not like acting like he's bigger and badder and better than you. He could throw his weight around, but he just doesn't. You know what I mean? Which is nice. So when you have your lead setting a tone like that, it's great for everybody, right? But yeah, just even over the years, he's always, anytime. I wish I had kept more in touch with him over the years in hindsight. But whenever I did, he was always nice and always helpful. I had a movie called Dorm Days that I had co-executive produced, and was trying to get out there, and he actually got it to what was it called? A company called Golden Circle, which is the ones that put out Big Fat Greek Wedding. He didn't have to do that. Like, I ran into him somewhere and he heard what I was doing, and then he was like, "Hey, let me see." He had one of his guys come down and see the
awesome.
movie. Yeah, I mean, way more than a lot of people your friends would do for you. He did. You know what I mean? Which just shows you the kind of guy he is. They didn't end up picking it up. We ended up getting it distributed by MGM, which was a big deal for straight to DVD, but have a top 5 company made a big difference. But just the fact that he would do something like that just shows you the kind of guy he is. Now, the challenge was this character, strange man from a strange land, and everywhere I looked were people from, my childhood, right? Like, I mean, I grew up seeing Tom Hanks and Bosom Buddies, and his great guest star on Happy Days, one of the best guest stars ever, in my opinion, But, Princess Leia, man, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like all messing with Bruce Dern. I'm a huge fan of, so it's like I had to really shake that off. And then Henry Gibbons too, playing our patriarch. I mean, I remember him from Laughing and Blues Brothers. I mean, these guys were all burned into my childhood memories. So I had to really shake that off. But the coolest thing was Bruce Dern, really sort of took me under his wing and took a liking to my work. And this character was a bit lost, and I was feeling a bit lost. And to have somebody that I respected like that come up to me and say, "Hey, I see what you're doing, and it's good work." And he just really encouraged me to keep going the direction I was going. And he also just gave me some great sound advice for my career. And I wish I'd stayed in touch with him, because I think he could have really given me some great advice along the way. But I was young, and I thought, oh, these guys don't want to hear from me,
Right.
But years later, I did a movie end of 2 years ago, the end of 2019, actually. I got to this movie called Hellblazers. It still hasn't come out, but the director, Justin Lee, put me in a couple other things, and he knew he wanted to have the two of us in a movie because of the Burbs thing. And so it was great to get to reconnect with Bruce and thank him for, for his support and how much it meant to me and how much I appreciated it. Because I think the guy is an outstanding actor.
From the Burbs to now, you're currently promoting the film Queen Bees, which also has an amazing cast behind it. What was it like getting that role, and what's it like working on set with some of the people in the film?
So I only did a cameo in the movie, but the reason I was psyched to do is I got to work with Ellen Bernstein, Anne Margaret, Jane Curtin, and Loretta Devine. So I got to work with these 4 iconic actresses. And what was really cool for me was in this scene, my character's watching them in this diner looking for opportunity to steal an old lady's purse, right? And but so for the first half of the day, I got to just sit there and watch them work. And as an actor who loves to watch other actors and different techniques and stuff, they're all different actresses, in their own right. I mean, like Ellen Bernstein's known to come from the actor's studio and be a method actress. And you would see, like, if she had a story she had to tell where she had to laugh, you'd see her reminiscing on something to get herself chuckling as she dropped into the scene. You could recognize that kind of work. Whereas somebody like, Jane Curtin, you just can't buy her comic timing, right? I mean, she's original Saturday Night Live alum, right? It doesn't get any better in the world of comedy. That's considered Harvard,
Yeah.
So you're watching these different actors work their different ways, but they're all good at what they do and how they mixed it all together to make this ensemble. So I really enjoyed that. And then when I finally got a chance to do my thing, we had a great time. So, and I got that job essentially because Michael Lembeck, his father has started a comedy class in L.A. in the 60s called the Harvey Lembeck Comedy Workshop that the daughter Helene still does, and then Michael does when he's not directing. So I had worked with him for a few years in that class, and when I heard about the project, I was like, "Hey, you got anything?" And that's what worked out.
That's awesome. And what else is coming out here soon for you?
Yeah, I got like a backlog of stuff. I guess because of COVID, it's all of a sudden just all this stuff's coming out at the same time. So Queen Bees just came out. Another movie just came straight on to Amazon Prime that none of us knew were coming out called Await the Dawn, little horror film, Dee Wallace, Vernon Wells, myself. So that's out on Amazon Prime now. An independent movie, sort of a sci-fi psychological thriller called River is coming out July 13th. And then a movie that I did in Atlanta called Charming the Hearts of Men is coming out August 13th. And that's a movie set in the 50s, and it's loosely based on this woman who had a hand in putting the word women in the civil rights legislation. And I play a character named Mr. Spratz who owns this diner where she has to take a job. She was a debutante. Her father passes away. She finds she has no money. She takes this job, and in taking this job, she starts to really see the prejudice of her town that's brewing, and she lets these Black people come and do a sit-in, and that causes this whole thing that actually really made the newspapers and had a hand in her having this influence because she was a debutante and she knew like the governor and all this stuff. And I just found out that was coming out last week, and that the trailer just came out. So that I'm excited. It's a good project. I have something to say, so I'm cool. I'm excited about that. And I think there's a couple other things. One is a trailer for a horror drama film I did called The Bleeding Dark. The trailer's out. I know when it's coming out. I'm the lead in that, very heavy emotionally. So I'm excited to see how drama and horror blend because that's really what it is. And then I just did a BET show called Tales that I play a corrupt cop, season 3. It's an anthology series. They do 10, and each one's a totally different story. And I think we're the 3rd episode of the season, though I have yet to hear when the season's dropping this year. But that was good. Really interesting bad cop. So curious to see how that comes out.
That's awesome. Where can everybody find you online?
Before I say that, 2 other things I want to plug real quick, and that's my music. So I have a solo record called Acoustic Gains, and a single, actually a 3rd single actually dropped today called Let It Ride, very vintage acoustic blues song. You can check it out on Spotify or Amazon or iTunes or even YouTube Music. Then I also have a band called Ripple Street that's more of a rock band. And we put out 3 singles this year. Our last single is called Would You, and I'll stand by. I think it's Black Sabbath-esque all the way. So if you like some Sabbath, check it out. So it's a nice variety. I got this very acoustic, intimate type thing going on, and I got this band rocking. So again, you can check that stuff on Spotify, YouTube, all of that. So that's the other thing I've been doing. And with the pandemic, I was like, there's no excuse. I've been talking about doing this acoustic record for a while. Get out of my ass and get it out there. So that's what's happening on the music level. So check me out. You can find me on Facebook or you can find me on Instagram under my name. You'll figure out which one's me. I'm the one putting up all the current stuff. So
I will put links for all of that in the description as well. Courtney, this has been an absolute pleasure and an honor to meet you. Like I said, you're in some of my favorite stuff. You're even in a bunch of my favorite TV shows too. And it's always great when you pop up on screen. So again, thank you for sitting with us for a little while.
Right on. Thank you, guys. It was nice meeting you, and hope you like some of the new stuff that's coming out.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Check it out.
See you soon.